a few things. If Jackie, if you could please make Mercedes co-host so she could share her screen.
No problem.
Please. And there were no minutes for us to review. I hope I didn't miss them if there were, because I didn't review them. But it's only been a couple of days, so I don't think there were minutes for us to review. I received a complaint, I think we all did actually, about texting during these meetings and public texting to us texting to the public. And although I don't think it's written in the Brown Act that you can't text, I can't imagine that it is not every bit as serious as having a side conversation. And I'm not sure that it's yet illegal. I don't think it's ethical. And I'm going to ask the public not to text committee members and ask committee members not to respond to texts, because that's the same as a side conversation, which is a Brown Act violation. We're supposed to be doing this business completely in the public eye. And if someone is texting from the public to us, they actually are getting public comment that's not been timed, and it's just not fair. It's also frankly distracting. I don't turn off my phone. I silence my phone and turn it upside down. So if you want to text me during the meeting, I will not respond. I mean, just know that. And I know that this has been modeled in it gets modeled at the city council. And it's just a phenomenon that appeared because of COVID and Zoom meetings. It never happened before, but now it's like we all think we have to have immediate access. And I'm going to ask the public to please not text, and ask committee members to please not even read them, not just not respond, but you really shouldn't be reading them. So that's my lecture for the day, and that's the end of my lecture. And I thank the person who brought that to my attention. So I'd like to call the meeting to order at 4:04. I actually should have called it before I said that. Jackie, could you take roll, please?
Councilmember Such?
I'm here.
Committee Member Toon?
Here.
Committee Member Coleman?
Present.
Committee Member Mansfield?
I don't think she will be here tonight. Tonight was it's an off night, and it was a problem for her schedule.
And Councilmember Garaventa?
Hello.
There he is.
Just logged in, as a matter of fact.
And then we have Committee Member Duaz absent as well.
Did you call Committee Member Morales?
Committee Member Morales?
Is present.
Perfect.
Thank you. And Darren, I mean, I just hung up with Darren, so he will be on shortly. Mercedes, I don't know if you have had a chance. You just got this email, or not an email, but this was just posted on the website not too long ago. And it is, I think that I sent out the whereas statements, and then a table with a column of whereas statements and a column of therefore statements. And the therefore statements were just in the order that they appeared on our document. I didn't match therefore statements to whereas statements. Ever the thinker, Mercedes, went through and tried to connect appropriate therefore statements to certain whereas statements so that they sort of matched. And so I would like to work off of that tonight. And we're going to have to go really slowly because this might be a bit confusing. So Mercedes, if you could share your screen, please. And would someone please tell me if they see that Darren is on when he comes on, in case I missed that.
Do we want to take public comment before moving into?
Oh, sorry. Sorry, thank you. Get rid of that. I should really write that on the agenda. So I'm going to open this up to public comment. You have 3 minutes. You can speak of anything that's not on the agenda. just raise your hand and use the raise your hand feature at the bottom of the screen. Okay. I don't see any hands raised. Oh, Jim, were you raising your hand?
No. I'm
Oh.
I'm trying to figure out the blur background. Every time I blur the background, I turn upside down. So it's a Zoom thing.
The background looks fine, so don't worry about it.
All right. Messy rooms.
You have some, you know,
And Dawn's artwork in the back.
some nice art back there. That's all I see. So
yeah.
Okay. So if you could share your screen, Mercedes. All right. So again, the whereas statements on the left-hand side, they're therefore statements in the order they were on the resolution, and then combining statements and adding some of the outcomes on the third column. So, and sometimes they do sort of line up, like the first whereas statement and the first therefore statement. Mercedes has that over on the next column, and it's, I think, the right therefore statement for that whereas statement, but she's added some stuff, some language from other therefore statements. Is that correct? Am I, Mercedes? If you could unmute me.
Yeah, so the wording added came from the approved outcomes by the city council. So it is nothing new, but the some of the parts, and I can point them out as we read, or I wonder if we could go back, since the outcomes, the approved outcomes are already in the website. Everyone can look at the approved outcomes there.
I can, if we're talking about approved outcomes, I can read the outcome. I have them sitting next to me, so I can read them.
Okay.
The first box does not have approved outcomes, though. Those are just cut from other whereas or therefore statements. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I'm going to explain a little bit how this is. So as you can see, the yellow highlights that have asterisks combine some parts of other, like give me a second here. Maybe if you could read, Colette, the outcomes, the approved outcomes by the city council.
I will. I want to back up for a minute, though. I just forgot that I didn't do something. The whereas statements over on the left-hand side, there are highlighted words, and those were words that we were considering changing last time. We didn't want to keep the word contributors for beloved leaders and impactful contributors to this community. Does anyone remember? I didn't write down any of the suggestions. Does anyone have suggestions for that? Or are we fine with contributors?
I have those notes from last meeting scribbled. I just don't have them in my office right now, but I can look after this meeting.
Okay.
I don't recall us landing on a word. I thought it was kind of up in the air when we left.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's why I didn't write something down. I haven't thought, I mean, when I saw that, I was trying to think of other words, and I haven't really thought of another word. So we can come back to that one at, at our next meeting even. And then on the third box, I think it was Elisa who didn't like the word demonstrated. And I think, Nathan, you suggested exacted, perpetuated. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Enacted and exacted were thrown out.
Oh, enacted and exacted. So how do people think about that? enacted, exacted, perpetuated?
Yeah, I like enacted. I'm pretty sure I wrote down to all of the, I think we did decide on some of these, but I can also, to save time, I can go back and rewatch the video and compare with my notes and bring those to the next meeting if we want.
Well, there's some I'd like to clear up, but okay. I think it is enacted. I think I did actually have that in the margins. Someone from the public brought up that the indigenous Chinese, Mexican, and Chilean were not minorities in that time. So they were wondering about that word. And I thought that was a point well taken. Mm-hmm. Can we just say against indigenous Chinese, Mexican, Chilean, and others?
Yes.
And not label them as minorities.
I like that.
How about everyone else?
Oh, Jim, you're muted.
Oh.
I should know that. I always try to keep muted. Going back to the other one, where we did demonstrated or enacted, the word that came to me was showed. So this period also showed violence, exclusion, and unjust laws. Does anyone have, or do you think exacted is better?
I like showed. I also think it wasn't really, I mean, it was definitely demonstrated during this period, but I think what I'm having trouble with is that we're saying it was the time period that demonstrated this. Obviously, it was people that demonstrated this and not just because of the time period. So I think I'm getting caught up because we're saying a period in time demonstrated this, but I think it would be more historically and grammatically accurate to say this was demonstrated during this time period. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't think enacted really actually fits the definition very well. But I see what you're saying, because it wasn't the period of time that did it. It was the people that did it during that time. So I'm thinking like displayed or exhibited.
Yeah.
But it was not only the people, because there were specific laws created. So enacted talk about legal means. So it was the people, but was also the legal parts during that specific period.
Right, but it wasn't the time period that demonstrated it. It was demonstrated during the time period. That's all I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to ask that we move on. We all need to think about this and how best to write this for next time. But just to kind of be efficient, if we could move on to the next page.
I just wanted to let everyone know that Darren is here.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, Darren. But I will change others and take out minority. Change other to others and take out minorities. If if people agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Mercedes, if you could scroll down a little bit.
Yes.
Please.
And if I can just have just something I quickly wanted to clarify, because I have, just to clarify, the table that was in with the agenda, that is the table that just lists the therefore and whereas statements as we've developed as a committee. And this one on the screen is just Mercedes' work, right? That was added with the third column.
Right, this is Mercedes' work. It's also in the packet. If you scroll all the way down, it's in the packet.
Okay.
So for this next one, this one is the one, I'm really sorry Elisa isn't here, but she didn't like the order, I thought, of Black, Indigenous, and people of color. So I thought maybe we should add BIPOC, but how are people feeling? How are people feeling about that? I mean, that is an established order in the literature. I mean, it's not our order.
And there is a reason for that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it was Tom Crosby who looked it up and said in public comment, it's because of the assaults on Black people.
When we knew when we were using those words that are the words that are currently, I would say, approved by research, and that is the order that is normally used, and there are specific reasons for that.
Right. Jim, were you trying to speak?
Well, I just wanted to basically confirm that through Dawn. This is one of the terms that's definitely being used today amongst is being used today, and she would vouch for that.
Yeah, no, it's
because Black, and it's kind of recognized among people of color, I guess, that Black and Indigenous have had a much rougher time comparatively to the rest, and so that's why they are singled out as BIPOC as opposed to just people of color.
Right. And if you read books on this topic, that's very common language, and that's how it is always represented. So, is having BIPOC in there helpful, or is that just? I mean, we don't use that term again in the document, which is usually what it means if you put it in parentheses. But
I think it's helpful.
You think it's helpful? Okay.
Because people might wonder, well, why are you listing off just 2 ethnic groups and then lumping the rest together? And if they see the acronym, they might say, well, what is that? Maybe they'll search for it. I would leave it in.
All right.
Yeah, the BIPOC is that's really what used widely. So I think it's good to leave it that way.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. The next one.
I'm trying to get in a word.
What?
I'm trying to. I was just trying to get in one word, one little snippet. If so Elisa couldn't be here today, but she just asked that I share for her that she preferred and wanted to give her input that because I think she was asked to work on the sequence. So she wanted to offer that she thought we should say including but not limited to BIPOC, and then list maybe in parentheses what BIPOC stands for, Black, Indigenous, People of Color, and then those living in poverty, those unhoused.
Oh yeah, I like that better.
That was her comment.
All right.
Yeah, BIPOC is such a common term. I think that's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so that goes first. And then, so that goes first, not in parentheses, and then in parentheses, it's Black, Indigenous, People of Color. All right.
Now, if Colette, if BIPOC goes first, all the letters go in capital.
Oh, it's really?
Yes.
Sorry. I should know that. Okay, I'll fix that.
No one needs to know everything.
But that's, I always like I like capitals with little O's. I just like the way it looks. But all right, so the next box, whereas, remember the public, it used to say the city of Sonora proclaims it's committed. And I believe she thought that it was important enough that we write it is committed. And I didn't disagree with her. So I've changed that. Another member of the public asked that we add gender identity here, because that's a pretty big issue common currently. So the first one I think is obvious. How do people feel about adding gender identity? I don't have a problem with it, I will say. Nikki?
Oh, I was giving you the thumbs up. I'm glad we're including that.
Any objection or any other? Okay. This next one where there's blue, that means that this whereas statement has been moved to a therefore statement, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So if we could scroll down to the next page. Okay, this was the big one, curiosity. Now this is mine, And I love that word curiosity. And I have to apologize because my preference and bias was just like screaming that it had to be curiosity, because I can't come up with another word that works even closely. I hate the word inquisitiveness. I think that's a really bad word. So what you'll see here is that I rewrote that section, and it's without a foundation of curiosity towards those with whom we disagree, we must also bring a commitment to the consideration of a different point of view. And I changed that to without a commitment to listening to those with whom we disagree and in consideration of a different point of view. So is that okay? Or does anyone have a better word for curiosity that is not inquisitiveness? Because that word almost makes my skin crawl. And I know it's the first word when you Google it or look it up in a thesaurus, but I really have a problem with that word. I find it inelegant. So any thoughts?
When I think about curiosity, I think about respect and open mind. So I wonder if we could, because I really would not want to have that if it's something that Alisa and some other people find disagreeable.
No. We cannot have curiosity. I got over myself. I mean, I actually did get over myself pretty quickly.
Okay.
I totally agree. I mean, that was overwhelmingly offensive.
Okay.
So I totally agree with that. And Mary Smith sent all of us an email about it. And I talked to Nikki about it. Nikki got my vomit about it, but I totally agree. No, that's gone. I should have probably crossed that out so that was clear. We're not keeping curiosity, but I just rewrote the whole thing sort of. I mean, I don't think it's as strong, but unless someone can come up without a foundation of respect and what's the other word?
Openness. Without the foundation of respect and openness towards those with whom we disagree.
Another word that was floating around was empathy. But
what?
Empathy.
Empathy.
Oh, empathy.
That's right.
But I think that what you rewrote so far is worlds better. Yeah.
How about respect, empathy, and inquiry? See, curiosity is a really good word, but I'm kidding. How about respect, empathy, and inquiry?
And openness, empathy,
yeah, I'm not sold on empathy.
Respect, and I don't love the word openness either.
Maybe for now we can keep it how it is in that second part.
And I'll put respect and inquiry and openness in parentheses or something, just so we can look at that later. And I mean, I really did I spent a lot of time trying to figure out another word, but
yeah, thank you for that, Colette.
There wasn't one. And so, okay, enough of that. We're not actually completing very much here. Okay, so that's it for the corrections or comments from last time. And I think Margaret had more comments, but she was so fast with them, I couldn't follow them. So Margaret, if you want to email me, you can. All right.
But I wonder if we could pause for a moment to see if there are any public comments about what we reviewed.
All right, good idea. So I'm going to open this up to public comment about just on the topics that we just discussed, the words that we just discussed in this document. And Margaret has her hand up.
I could just go over a little bit more slowly a few of the things. Instead of the word contributors, I was suggesting participating members because contributors made it sound like the tribal people were not part of the community.
Okay.
And participating members would include them.
All right.
And then instead of the word demonstrated, one possibility is just to say included, you know, we're saying also included these actions or something like that.
Okay.
And I liked curiosity, but thought of compassionate curiosity or curiosity and caring, you know, to make it, it's not interrogation, it's just, but those are the ones I had.
Okay, thank you. I think curiosity is off the table, but thanks for trying to make it work. Tristan.
My goodness. What? Excuse me.
Now, remember, we're just talking about the words that we just discussed.
Yes. There's a word that's missing, and I don't think you can introduce that word, but genocide. Genocide is a historical fact. It's not a concept. It's not somebody's interpretation. It's a historical fact. It's missing. Now, I don't think like I say, I don't think you need to use those same words, but the history of what took place is missing. And I think that probably in the minds of the committee members, it's not there. It's not there. So that when you talk about a posture towards the natives, that's not acknowledged. And it's manifest in the writing. There are other quibbles that I would have, but I don't really want to get into them.
Okay.
But I'm not on the committee, so I can't do the whole thing.
All righty. Thanks, Tristan. All right. Is that it? Anything anymore? No. All right. So let's, Mercedes, if we could go back to the top and start there.
Aaron, did you have anything? I know you're driving, but.
Oh.
No, I'm actually parked. I only got those new therefores that Mercedes added to stuff, 15 minutes before the meeting. So I'm doing that real quick.
Yeah. I think we all did. I hear you.
And Darren and Nikki, so none of those words are my words. There are wording from the City Council approved committee outcomes. If you look at the document that is in the website, you can find the approved outcomes there and the purpose statement. So I didn't add anything myself. The only thing I did was to include in some of the therefore that we all created some parts of the approved outcomes that the City Council reviewed last year.
And Mercedes, I'm going to read those now. So just to review them for people. The City Council approved expected outcomes: creation of a social equity committee mission and vision statement, creation of a social equity resolution condemning racism, review and possible update of city values statement, review and possible update of city policies on racial sensitivity, review and possible racial sensitivity training for city staff and City Council, and community partner engagement to ensure proper circulation of racial and diversity sensitive material for the community at large. And it's, I think, helpful for everyone to hear these because we keep being told that we've been working on a resolution for 18 months and we've done much more than that. So anyhow, okay.
And one more thing, Colette, if you have in front of you the purpose statement, because also some words are taken from there.
Okay, the purpose of the Social Equity Committee is to formalize the City of Sonora's active commitment to belonging, fairness, justice, and equity for all, to listen to diverse and marginalized voices, to provide a safe space for conversation, reflection, and understanding, to recognize and acknowledge implicit bias, to explore systems and identify areas of opportunity to ensure they work on behalf of the common good for all. We intentionally invite everyone to build common ground and civility in our community. Both of these were approved by the City Council. Not unanimously, but pretty close. Okay, so on the first one, Mercedes, you wanted to say where you got those for conversations?
Oh, sure.
Reflection and understanding.
Okay, so the 5K therefore, the City of Sonora and its community welcomes and embraces cultural awareness and inclusivity and pledges to be a refuge and ally and provide a safe zone to people of all racial, ethnic, and multicultural backgrounds. So the parts in yellow, highlighted in yellow, comes for the purpose statement for conversation, reflection, and understanding to explore systems and identify areas of opportunity to ensure they work on behalf of the common good for all.
Okay, so that's all from the purpose statement.
Yes. Then the second one, therefore, the City of Sonora is committed to, from the approved outcomes, to conduct cultural responsiveness training for city staff and city council to set in a tone that will reject the tendency to use fear, a common tactic throughout history, to scapegoat anyone in our community to be other.
I have a little bit of problem with that one.
Okay.
I know I don't want to offend you, Mercedes, but on that one, but we are advisory committee, and to put in there that to conduct cultural, we're overstepping. And I know that I know we approved and had things come from City Council, and I think we're in a different place today than we were when those came out. And I don't think that we should be representing anything that the city should be doing in that. That is the City Council's discretion to do that kind of stuff. We are advising. The first one we had was really good, and now we're adding to it, and I don't think that's appropriate.
Hey, Jaren, first of all, you don't offend me because these are not my words, but are the outcomes that were approved by the City Council, and they were made by the committee and approved by the City Council. So they are not mine. They are
I understand.
our.
Adding them in, though, I don't think I'm probably the only one that really has a problem saying that the city has to conduct cultural trainings or anything like that as a advisory committee. I get where we are now is a different place than when those came out. When the City Council met at this, it was 18 months ago, and I don't think those are appropriate outcomes for this committee to be doing.
Also, I think that the outcomes that were approved were softer than the City of Sonora is committed to conduct. It's
Nikki has his hand up.
I'm sorry? Oh, I'm
Nikki.
sorry. Oh, was her
It's okay.
hand.
I can wait whenever someone's done. I'm just
Go on.
having trouble getting a word in, so I thought I'm just going to raise my hand.
Go on, Nikki.
I just wanted to make, I guess, another clarification, and this is what I was asking about earlier with this table. Mercedes, I completely understand that you pulled, this is not new language, and you pulled language from the original outcomes that we discussed in the very beginning, like a year and a half ago, I think, or a year ago. But I think the clarification I was asking was, in those outcomes, there's verbiage that says, I believe, can you confirm what it says, Colette, at the very beginning of just the first outcome? I think it's like review and possibility, or
about training. I mean, there are a couple.
All of them. There's language at the very beginning.
The first one is creation of a social equity committee mission and vision statement. But
no.
So the third, fourth, and fifth all start with review and possible update, and review and possible racial sensitivity training for cities.
Right. And so that was the piece that I just wanted to clarify. They are outcomes that we talked about, but it's review and possible update. And so I think there's a difference between saying we want to explore and review and see what already exists and kind of build those bridges, as opposed to just putting it in the resolution and saying, because it wasn't approved, it was not approved to do this. It was approved for review and possibility. And I think that this is a much bigger conversation, but that was the clarification I wanted, was it wasn't approved for us to just recommend this. And I think that's still a much bigger conversation that everyone in the committee should have a voice towards.
I agree with you, Nikki. I think that when we came up with the therefore statements, and we were all 7 or 6 of us came through it, and now we're seeing a different topic involved in it, those outcomes are completely different today than what we would have imagined in the beginning of this. And I think that it's not acceptable to put it like that without a lot more. And where we were and what we actually came up with is what we came up, and now we're actually going to add or change or move or addition to with additional verbiage. And I just don't think that that's in our purview.
Nathan, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's some pretty strong language. The city of Sonora is committed to do something. They're not just going to do it, but they're committed to do it. And it does seem outside of our scope as an advisory committee to basically say that the city is going to have these trainings. The other question I have is that if these statements are part of the intended outcome, wouldn't that be like part of the document, like as a cover sheet and separate? I'm almost wondering if we need to add them in here, because wouldn't you say, oh, here's what, as the city of Sonora, this is what we value. Here's our outcomes, and then here's our document. I almost think maybe keeping them separate would be important, but it's not that big of a deal. I'm just wondering.
So just with the resolution also include the outcomes, because the outcomes aren't necessarily tied to the resolution. You know, we are to review racial sensitivity training and possibly recommend it for city staff, which I don't know. I don't feel like we've done.
We didn't really get a chance.
Sorry, I have my hand up.
Mercedes.
Yeah, thank you. So responding to, the statement of this should be a conversation for all of us. That is the reason we are having this conversation. It hasn't been approved. It is a proposal right now. And this is the public conversation we are having, because we don't supposed to have private conversations. So we are having a public conversation, and nobody has approved any of those of the drafts. So this is the conversation, number one. Number two, proposals that we have been doing, each of them, we have done the same process. We put forward a statement, we talk about, we dismantle, we change. So there is no reason to get all, I don't know what is the word.
Upset.
We're upset. And second, You know, an advisory committee is here to give advice. So that is what we are doing, to give advice. Therefore, supposed to be to propose actions. So we can examine every word, we can change every word, but there is no reason for we act like we are full of fear. We are an advisory council. And that is what we are doing. We are advising.
I'll apologize for stepping over anyone. I think I might have done that. I can't see your guys' pictures or hands raised, so apologies in advance. I agree with you, Mercedes, we should have this talk, but when you look at the outcomes, it says review. We don't know what policies are already in place for this, and we don't know anything about that. So if we're going to go on a general idea of this is what we want or don't want, there's a whole process where we need to do a review and get data and figure that out. I just think that this is something outside the purview of what we should be doing. We should be focusing on our resolution and the therefores that we have all come to understanding and agreed on. That's where I kind of think about this. I am going to be the vote for no exceptions of adding that stuff. You know, if it involves city employees having to do anything, I mean, you're going to get legal involved, you're going to get unions involved. There's a lot to that where we can't make a decision in a 90 minutes or 60 minutes. I don't remember what this one is today where we're talking about it. This should have been not sent 15 minutes before the meeting so that I had some time to review it. Also the public should have got some time to review it as well, because I'm sure they're just as flabbergasted as the rest of us. And I don't want to come off and sound like I'm upset with it. I get what you're doing. You put it in there because it is a general outcome or a decision that could be made. And it's great to have that talk, but we are prematurely putting the cart before the horse because we don't know what reviews and policies are already in place.
Colette?
Yes, Jim, sorry.
So I'll weigh in. From what I understand, there are some of the staff, if not all, but I don't think all, but most of the staff does go through some sort of training in this realm, from what I understand. So I agree with Mercedes saying that we are an advisory body, therefore we need to advise, and I don't have a problem with that. But a lot of the conjecture is based on not knowing who's getting the training, who doesn't. I know the city council does not get training because I've never had training in the almost 8 years I've been on the city council. My suggestion would be, if I can read it right, is to kind of edit it slightly and to bring in what was actually said to the what was the wordage of the outcomes that the council approved those 18 months ago, and that would be.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, I just thought you were. I thought you were going to ask me to read it again, but
oh no,
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
So I'm doing this on my iPhone, so it's all the type is really small. So. But my suggestion would be the city of Sonora is committed to conduct a review of the appropriateness of cultural response training for city staff and city council, and go on from there.
I could get on board where as long as it leaves it with the city administrator. Or
I like that. Yeah, to conduct a review. And you know, one thing, when you said that, Jim, and you talk about that in how many years? 8 years?
Yeah.
You have never had training.
We've had ethics training, and I'm trying to recall whether part of that ethics training consists of this.
I think so.
Yeah.
But that's the only kind of training we've had.
Yeah. And, I wanted to speak to that because I really, maybe because the environment I work within, but for example, organizations are by law, they need to take like harassment training every year or every 2 years.
Right.
Some type of organization by law are required to take cultural responsiveness trainings every 2 years. There are other organizations that are required to take equity, diversity, equity, and inclusion trainings. So I feel shocked that it seems like I am suggesting something from a different world when it is so common. There are trainings about, cultural responsiveness is something so basic.
Mercedes, the other word that comes up is cultural competency. What's the difference between cultural responsiveness and cultural competency?
Yeah, the only difference, the difference between cultural competence and cultural responsiveness is that when cultural competence started, it was like a beginning and an end. I have this competency, so I am good. I understand everything that I need to know. Cultural responsiveness convey the idea that it is an ongoing learning, that we never finish to learn. That today I know what cultural competence is. I probably master some of those skills. And tomorrow there will be new things I need to continue learning. Maybe today I know a lot about the Latino culture or the Asian culture, but I don't know all the cultures within the cultures. So it speaks to an ongoing learning. That is the only difference.
Thanks, that's helpful. Nikki.
So I had a thought when you mentioned cultural competency. So as I mentioned, I touched base with Elisa today to just kind of see if there was anything she wanted me to share. And this topic did come up. We were sort of brainstorming on some of the bigger picture outcomes and therefore statements. I think Elisa has a lot of experience in trainings through her job and at the county level with a lot of these trainings. And we both shared the sentiment that in addition to this resolution, we want the change to be from a place of partnership, from a place of understanding. And for me, just as we were talking in this today, sort of requiring a training or mandating a training in this resolution feels like something that we are kind of putting the cart before the horse at this moment where we are right now. The first therefore statement says, and we kind of jumped from that quickly, and I was going to try to elaborate on this, but it says to explore systems and identify. And I love that part of the therefore statement. I think that exploration and just seeing where we're at is one of the most important outcomes, because how can we come into a situation and say this is required, and we're, as an advisory committee, we're basically suggesting that this be introduced. I don't know, maybe you guys do, but for me as an individual, I don't know what already exists. I don't know the systems and the processes and the trainings that are already in place. And so, like me being a really empathetic person, when I think about, for instance, city staff, I don't know them, and I don't know what already is in place. So I would like the opportunity to have that exploration process and build those bridges to truly see what is happening. And so Elisa had mentioned that this cultural competency is a state mandated training that all, this is according to her, she's fairly certain that city, county, and state staff already have mandated cultural competency training, but I don't know what that looks like, and I want to know. I think we all would be interested in knowing what that looks like. So I guess I would just, as Jim had mentioned, I think we should do some exploring and really see what exists before we recommend anything above exploration.
Nathan.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I would like to know what the city is doing. The only problem I have is it seems like we're up against the clock here. If I'm not mistaken, that we don't have much time left. And maybe that's one of my concerns about having this stuff added in, especially, being sent just before the meeting, is I don't know how many meetings we have left. And it seemed like we were kind of getting close to maybe finishing this. Do we have time to do that exploration?
Well, the exploration would just be a therefore statement. It wouldn't be something that we would do before. We wouldn't have time for that. That would be one of our actionable outcomes that we propose. Could be. It could be.
Is that kind of like what Jim was saying with a possible review of stuff?
That's how I understood it. I think that would be a great actionable outcome if that's what we're talking about.
Well, I didn't use the word possible. I think just a review.
Now you said conduct a review.
Right.
Conduct a review. It wasn't a possible review. I think a review is in order, frankly.
Who is going to do those reviews?
Well,
that's the rub. I don't know.
I called the city administrator this afternoon and asked her. So she's doing a review.
Okay, so if it's left to the city administrator and you put in, we're to conduct a review of, what cultural response training there is or any kind of trainings there are, if it's left to her, then I think conducting a review is perfect verbiage to use.
So what I am hearing is that the number one, to explore systems and identify areas of opportunity, I heard that no one has a problem with that. What I heard about the second one is that changing conduct to review resolve the issue for everyone. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct.
Yeah. My wording, if you don't have to follow it, but my wording would be conduct at that point a review of, I had a word and I forgot it now, of the appropriateness of, and then cultural responsiveness training. Or no, that wasn't appropriate. That wasn't appropriateness. It was another A word.
Availability? No.
Not availability.
You said to conduct a review of appropriate training on
of the
did you say adequate?
Yeah, something along those lines.
I thought you said appropriateness, but
yeah,
appropriate makes more sense.
I don't know, but I think basically it would be to the effect of how, first of all, reviewing who gets the training, because I do believe most of the staff, if not all, get some sort of training, even though the council does not. Unless they have it through their, unless we have it through our ethics or sexual harassment. We have to have, so just to let you know, we have to have ethics training every 2 years and sexual harassment training every 2 years. And as you can tell, I remember every bit of it, right? But it's probably, I'm not remembering what part of it is if there's any cultural responsiveness training, because it's, to me, it's common sense anyway. So it just may go whoosh, and oh, that makes sense. I understand that. So I don't recall exactly what training we're getting, if at all. But anyway, But I think it's just, it would be a matter of reviewing what training there is, and if, you know, if we think that it's proper, you know, good, and it meets the need. Now, I don't know what adjective you want to use for that, but I certainly think a review would be in order. I'm not sure just mandating, as was written, is, we have got to know what's being conducted before we can say whether, you know, this needs to be done or this doesn't need to be done. That's my point.
I'm pretty sure, Jim, that our ethics training does not, if it includes anything about cultural responsiveness, it is so like hidden,
it's probably very vague,
minuscule, that it's not effective.
Yeah, and I just had it when I went to the League of California Cities. I sat through that, and I just, you know, but you know, when you go through these things, a lot of it is just common sense. So you just don't, it just doesn't, you know, oh, I know that, I wouldn't do that, I wouldn't do that. So,
but I think when I did ethics training, I was doing it looking for this, and if it was there, it was almost nothing. It was very token if it was there at all.
Right.
So,
now, one thing about the two words, cultural responsiveness, it seems like people are very familiar with what cultural competency is, although the research on that has been advanced a lot. So it's where cultural responsiveness comes, but we can go back, you know, and just name cultural competence or cultural competency, which are two different trainings. But if that is a word that is more common, we can use that.
I mean, I think we should use both. I think it should be cultural responsiveness and competency myself, or competency and responsiveness, because you said competency is, I can't remember what you said. You said something profound, that it has a beginning and an end. So after that would be responsiveness. So let's move on from this. I think we need to all sort of think about it. We're going to meet again hopefully on Tuesday. Darren, Nathan, I know that Tuesdays are bad for you. But so let's kind of go on from this. And in the meantime, I will find out what, you know, certainly the police department gets a lot of training in this area. I'm not sure that anyone else really does, but I don't know that. So I will know that by Tuesday. How about that? And report back. So if we go to the next one, therefore the city of Sonora to fulfill its obligation to protect public safety and to promote human rights and racial justice, will review and update policies on cultural responsiveness, and will ensure proper circulation of racial and diversity sensitive material for the community at large. That again is from the objectives, or the outcomes, excuse me.
Correct. And I say here, before we experience another moment of setting, every county review policies and update them. You know, I don't know how often, I don't know if it's every year, every 2 years, every 3, 5 years, but that is something that is part of the business. Review and update.
I think we lost Nathan.
He had to, what time is it? He had to leave.
Oh, okay.
At 5. So
502.
you do too? You have to leave at 5?
No, she gave you the time
No,
was 5:02.
I thought that you said, what time is it?
Oh,
And I said it's
5:02.
5:02.
I thought you said I'd leave at 5 too. So again, this one was review and possible update of city policies on racial sensitivity. If we are going to include that, I think it should also have something about with a lens of, or something about equity. I think that needs to be, if one is reviewing policies, you should be reviewing them to ensure equity is written into them, I think. But that was not on the outcomes, but it's just been part of our discussion over these months. But what do people think? We'll review, we'll conduct a review, same wording as the previous one.
Yeah, the review, definitely. Ensure proper circulation of racial and diversity sensitive material for the community at large. That feels to me like, and I know it was just language that we previously discussed, but I think we should also leave ourselves room for discussion on a lot of these things, and I guess wiggle room. It sounds like a really kind of bold statement, but really vague at the same time. So we are going to give material to the community at large, but I don't really know what that material is. And so again, I think the review is, and that exploration is really important before we make big statements. But I guess I just am not, we haven't really ever discussed what that material is or what the, yeah, I guess I'll leave it at that.
That is a really good point, Nikki. Yeah, because we thought that we were gonna be able to work somehow in the outcomes. So of course that talking about racial and diversity sensitive materials can be so many things. But, it doesn't seem likely that we would be able to work on those materials.
Right.
So where, Colette, do you think that equity could be inserted there?
We'll conduct a review and update city policies on cultural responsiveness and a lens for equity. Although a friend of mine told me a lens for equity is a stupid statement.
Why?
She said it should be a goal towards equity, not a lens, but a goal towards equity. But but for lens, it's because it's reviewing policy, so you have to sort of keep equity. Is equity being addressed here? Is equity being addressed? Yeah, so I don't know. She's a very fancy editor, though, so I something like this to her.
Makes sense.
Anyhow, I hid my phone, so I wouldn't be answering it.
Time for public comments, or shall we continue?
I would like to open it up. I mean, there's a lot here, and I think it's a lot for people, for the public, if they're interested, to hold on to. So I think I should open it up to public comment, and then we'll go back maybe and do one more, hopefully, because I also would like to today to have time for committee member reports. So I'm going to open this to public comment. If anyone has any comments, again, it's on the sentences and the wording that we were just discussing, not the things that we haven't discussed. if you have any comments, corrections, clarifications for us, that would be helpful. See, I don't, phone number ending in 5354.
Yeah. Policy 23 is the violence policy. Policy 39 is the workplace wrongdoing policy. Policy 38 is the disability discrimination policy. Policy number 7 is the non-discrimination policy. All of these policies are read, signed, and dated by the employee at hiring, that they understand it. They've read it and they understand it. Yeah, we go through harassment training. We are in compliance with all state and federal laws. It gets called sexual harassment training. It's really not. It involves discrimination of any type, national origin, for one, like talking about how the people of Europe came over here and did bad things. Race, like if you're white. Ethnicity, whatever ethnicity you happen to have, including if you like America, sex, religion. I've noticed in your literature that you try to blame Christianity for slavery and genocide and what was it, manifest destiny and such. Yeah, that could be a problem. You got some Christians working for you. Your whole approach is in contrary to Buddhism, so if you got one of those, you're going to have a problem. That's not the only religion I can think of, but I don't want to just start citing all of those where things don't mesh. As far as all the sensitivity stuff goes, I've mentioned a whole lot of mixed employees like myself and a bunch of others, all through history, all the different departments. I'm really surprised that some of you haven't got it, or you don't remember what's in the training. Well, anyway, it's Mercedes, you've been advised in the past that the resolution has to do with what you were on before and not trying to push the additional training, especially when you don't know what we go through. There's all kinds of other trainings we have to do dealing with safety and flagging and like 50 different things.
30 seconds.
It's constant. So a lot of this stuff, I'll just let you know, it's really unwelcome, unwanted, unwelcome, unnecessary. We're a very interracial mixed team. Thank you. That's it.
Anyone else? Okay. Since there are no more public comments, let's move on to the next page. Now this one gets complicated. So Mercedes, you're on. It's therefore the city of Sonora pledges to engage in individuals more impacted by social inequities. And there's a blue, number 1 is blue. And if you go down to the bottom, whereas the city of Sonora pledges to engage in individuals more impacted, that's been moved up to a therefore statement. And then, so from that, you can take it on, Mercedes.
You're muted, Mercedes.
Thank you, Nikki. So I was saying that we receive a lot of feedback. Some of the feedback is really valuable, including the person that just spoke a moment ago. And in this particular one, so one of the feedback was whereas the one that I am showing here on the bottom, The city of Sonora pledges to engage individuals more impacted by social inequities, et cetera, et cetera. So there was a question about this statement looking more like a therefore. So I try to follow that and I move it here. So the first part is that statement. So see, the city of Sonora pledges to engage individuals more impacted by social inequities, fostering a community where all ethnicities, cultural backgrounds, gender identity, sexual orientation, and religion feel safe, represented, and included within our community. And then, trying to close this. Oh, I can't. And then I added, because it's like the other part necessary. So it's fostering. So then it calls also to residents to treat their neighbors with kindness, tolerance, empathy, trust, and respect, so that we may live and thrive together in a community of acceptance and peace. And the last words are the end of the next, therefore. Focus on our community's needs and values. And I want to remind everyone that every statement was repeated because each of us made some drafts. So when we combined the drafts, there were some words and some phrases that were repetitive. So then is the whereas that is at the bottom, is the beginning of this therefore, and combines part of the 2 and 3. And one more thing I would like to say, tolerance also is a word that I don't like, because tolerance is like, to tolerate something is something that I don't like, but I will make an effort just to endure the struggle. Or, I think that when we are talking about calling to residents to treat their neighbors with kindness, empathy, trust, and respect, that is really enough.
I agree with you on that one. I don't like tolerance either.
Unions have done an amazing work towards equity, because they fight for the well-being of workers, to defend workers. So all of this is in alignment with that, to defend workers, to defend the rights of people.
So does anyone have any, I actually sort of like the way this therefore statement plays. Do people want some more time to review this? I like the way it reads and flows myself.
The definition term of social inequities is, what does that mean? In a broad statement, if I'm a regular Joe reading this, what does social inequities mean?
I don't know. It means someone without social equity.
You know, one thing that comes to my mind right now is something that there are so many examples, but one in the newspaper today, there was this article about the forum that is going to happen very soon about childcare. Right. So a social inequity would be in that context, mothers or fathers or families that have to work but can find affordable and available childcare.